Chapter 21. Shit. Sean flattened himself belly down under the glaring light, for all the good it would do. He might as well just walk up to them and pretend to be invisible. The trenches were in chaos. Shouting, lots of it. Action, figures moving. What the fuck was going on? More shouting. The trenches were emptying, not in an orderly fashion either. The reservists were up and out of them like rabbits from a warren. An order disguised as a yell rolled across to him. "Get back in your trenches now! Move! Get in there!" This was quickly followed by a shout of, "Who the crap let off that bastard flare?" Whoever it was, Sean guessed, wasn't going to own up, because whoever it was knew he would be getting a royal kick up the arse. And then came a shout which Sean thought at first must be directed at him. "You, soldier!" He gritted his teeth and looked up. Time to bluff his arse off. "What the fuck are you doing without your rifle?" So, obviously not at him. He blinked into the light and studied the panicking reservists more closely. Sure enough, he could count 1, 2, considerably more than 6 without their weapons. Their guns must still be in their trenches, alone and abandoned. This was his chance. He leaped up and forward. The flare was dying and would soon hit the deck. There was still monumental confusion all around, and the trenches were empty. He was in and out of the first in a heartbeat. 1 SA-80 swapped. He scooted across to another trench, ducked in, bagged what he was after. Same again at the third trench. And then he was out of there and into the dark before he'd even had a chance to think about what he'd just done. Several of the guys running around like headless chickens must have seen him, but he was dragged up like they were, and no one saw anything unusual. The flare faded into nothing and he legged it without looking back, crouched all the way until he got to the OP. He dropped to the ground and spilled the weapons onto the dirt. Then he realised one flaw in the plan, which was that the entrance into the bush was too well hidden. He couldn't find it in the dark. Okay, so he could wait for Heaton and they could do it together. He stayed still, listening for any sign of someone coming after him. But there was only one noise. The sound of someone else breathing nearby. It turned into a low chuckle. The flare worked a treat, didn't it? Sean swung round in the dark. "You are shitting me," he gasped between breaths. "That was you! Why the fuck didn't you warn me? I was out in the open. I could have been spotted." "I was thinking on my feet," Heaton said. He emerged from the shadow, a dark shape splitting from a dark shape, and squatted next to Sean. "One of the reservists must have dropped a flare. I found it. Boom. And look what it got us." They both looked down on what was lying between them. 6 SA-80s. And somewhere out in the dark, 6 unsuspecting reservists were at some point this weekend about to experience a whole world of confusion. Have we really just done that? Sean felt himself start to grin. He was still mighty pissed off with Heaton, but hey, he might have done the same thing if the opportunity had come up. And between them, they had pulled off one cool heist. "Yeah," said Heaton. "A rush or what?" He didn't give Sean a chance to reply. "We move now," he said. "Get these covered and let's get out." That had been the final stroke of genius in the plan. The corporal didn't want half a dozen semi-automatic rifles knocking around in the back of his car or stuffed away in a cupboard back at his flat, so they would stash them on the plane. It was the last place anyone would look, because no one in their right mind would leave stolen weapons in the place they actually stole them. Sean didn't need telling twice. A sunny Sunday afternoon, the wet Saturday night well and truly gone, and Sean was back in the Monty. They had got back to Tidworth in the small hours, and he had crashed in Heaton's spare room, then back to barracks for a good long hot shower. His muckers naturally assumed he'd pulled the previous night. He saw no reason to deny it. Heaton came in, huge grin on his face, and headed straight over without a detour to the bar. "Well?" Sean asked. "We did it," Heaton said, a grin creasing his mouth. "We only did it? Christ, mate, this is the stuff of legend." He slid an envelope across the table. "You'll cut the fee. The goods have already been collected." Sean looked at him sharply. They were meant to be going back the next weekend, once any fuss about the guns had died down, to retrieve them. "Whoa, but I thought... Buyer agreed to collect. I just gave the coordinates, all sorted. Sean glanced inside the envelope. It was stuffed with notes, and his heart beat a little faster. "That's $2,000, mate," Heaton said. "Not bad for a night's work." "Uh-huh. Okay." So he wasn't doing this for the money. That was what he told himself. He was doing this to get weapons into the hands of people who could fight back where the army couldn't. But, like the drop he'd made in the farmyard, he couldn't deny there was a rush that came with it, and handling money only made it better. Old habits were too ingrained to die. But if this was going to go on, something had to change. "Geez, don't sound too happy about it, or people will stare," Heaton said. Sean looked him in the eye. "Mate, you got to start playing straight with me." Heaton put on a puzzled frown. "Meaning?" "Meaning, you didn't say anything about the buyer collecting. Meaning, you didn't tell me about copper. Meaning, you didn't let on what I was supplying. Meaning, you keep telling me one thing, and then I find it's something else, and it's pissing me off, and it makes it hard to fucking trust you." They stared hard at each other, unblinking. Heaton was the first to look away. "Okay. Maybe I'm just too used to being a one-man show. Maybe I could learn to let you in a bit more. Shit, mate, I don't want you not to trust me, so I'm sorry, okay?" Sean grumpily allowed himself a smile. "Had to be said, mate." "Course it did. And we've been invited to a party. The buyer wants to show his gratitude." Sean's rising spirits came crashing very quickly back down. He shook his head firmly. "Nah, if it's all the same to you, I'll give it a miss. You don't mix business and pleasure." Heaton frowned. "Doesn't matter if it's all the same to me. It's not all the same to him, and I've already accepted on your behalf. They want to meet us. Discuss possible further business." "There isn't going to be any further business," Sean snapped. "Not for bloody ages anyway. Can't just go out shopping at the quartermaster stores 24/7, can we? You said yourself, it's time limited. We're not going to bag another handful of SA-80s anytime soon. You can only be lucky for so long." Heaton just looked impassive and twirled a finger, waiting for Sean to get to the end of his spiel. Sean sighed. "When is it?" "We can be there in an hour," Heaton said. "Drink up."